A mission failure would be people who are dying because they don't get that message and don't get out, and the fighting reignites. Well, it's absolutely essential that you have one if you're going to recreate the conditions for that they got the diplomats out of. It was a non-combatant evacuation operation, and the non-combatant bit is the key thing here, that you don't want to go into a hot situation when there's lots of firing. So can you trust it or not? You need to look at the metrics. So what is the deteriorating situation that we've seen today, which needs to be reversed? Well, the first one is there are intense gun battles in Khartoum in many of the districts, including mortar and artillery fire. So you'd want to see that there was no use of heavy weapons, no use of small arms weapons, and that the pressure on the airport is open, which gives you the opportunity to get out through the airport. The second thing is that there have been increasing carjackings and robberies on land routes, including food and water and valuables being taken from those who've tried to get out. So you want to see freedom of movement on those aspects. So both the land routes and the air routes are crucial to be as benign as possible for you to do this in a safe way so that no civilians are harmed. Because really the true metric of success, of course, is success looks like no civilians are killed and all those who wish to get out are safely evacuated.
Because Andrew Mitchell, the minister speaking in the Commons earlier, was saying that they needed a ceasefire in order to get civilians out. But I mean, they did get British diplomatic staff out with the help of quite a significant military force.
Well, it was a small force, actually. The fact that we've actually forward deployed 1,200 people is significant because you've shortened your lines of communication, should they need to go in again in the next 72 hours. So if you can shorten that line of communications from wherever it might be, the Cyprus or Djibouti, because the Americans have got people there, then you'll turn around time, because you can't get as many aircraft into Khartoum, for example, as you could into Afghanistan, into Kabul, is severely, you reduce that sort of throughput. So that's a good thing. Now, there's lots of players in this, though. So can you trust it? And can the communications, the command, control and communications of both the Sudanese armed forces and the rebel forces, or the rapid support forces, can they get that message to their elements all around the country? And actually, will there be opportunities to who take advantage of this? So one of the really bad things which has happened in the last 24 hours is 6,000 prison inmates in Khartoum were released following riots there due to a lack of food, water and electricity, and that included murderers and maximum security people. Now, that's significant because we're almost getting to a tilt point if the ceasefire doesn't hold, where the Foreign Office and American State Department advice about staying put, which has been there for a significant number of days, really, since the fighting began on the 15th of April, means that people are now running out of either water or food or the ability to listen in, because their phones will no longer work if the internet is down or they can't charge their things. Yeah. So there's almost a tilt point where they're going to have to say, we're going to have to get these. So the ceasefire is significant, and in terms of it's an opportunity to be exploited to get as many people out as possible in hopefully the most benign way possible. But whether it holds or not, we'll have to see, because there was supposed to be one over the 3-day period of Eid last weekend, which didn't hold.
But as we were hearing today, I mean, several other nations do seem to have been able to get at least a few hundred of their people out of the country, and indeed one or two British nationals have managed to get in with other evacuations. I just wonder why other nations have been able to achieve this, whereby the UK hasn't. I mean, are we perhaps being unduly cautious, or do you think that there's just too much of a concern about trying to get people out and then coming under fire, which of course could be incredibly dangerous?
Well, of course, there is always a difference in terms of how governments look at risks, and there's also a difference in scale of the number of people there from European countries to British nationals and American nationals. So the figure quoted at the moment is 4,000 for the Brits and 16,000 for Americans or dual nationals. It's a few hundred for the European nations. But it is ultimately, in the options that you present to ministers, you need clear information on risks, opportunities and costs. And it's ultimately for the ministers to take the decisions on this. Now, the mechanisms are there and were reactivated in a way following their first usage when the National Security Council's first run through of this really was nothing to do with Afghanistan. It was to do with Libya in 2011. And there were clear lessons learned which came out of that, which I hope everyone in government is adhering to. And they included that, of course, the first priority in any crisis is likely to be affecting the safe extraction of those British nationals who want to leave as early as possible. Now, that's not happened at the moment. And one of the things that they've not quite got right, and the lessons learned included this, was that Strategic Communication Steering Group embedded in the National Security Council needed to get the messaging absolutely correct. Now, if you're someone like me who looks at these things, they've said quite clearly to the people in Sudan in the last 2 days, stay put. It's a difficult situation at the moment. We can't get you out at the moment. Now that will change, but whether everyone's going to get the message to get them out if this opportunity does arise in the next 72 hours, we don't know. And as I said earlier, a mission failure would be people who are dying because they don't get that message and don't get out and the fighting reignites.